We are so excited to present our new POS decision engine. But before I get started on that, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Liza Chinchilzi, and I work in the marketing department. And with me, I have Rick Ralph, our Chief Marketing Officer, as well as Jose Larrazabal, our second president of IS, with us. And the honorary CFG member, Mr. Allentown, is also on the line with us. And together we're going to take you through a little bit of the product. I know we're going to touch on the application a little bit, but mainly focus on our POS decision engine. Rick, any comments on your end before we get started?
First off, yes, thanks, Liza. First off, we're excited to be with you guys today. I think you're going to see that last year Columbian came out with what we call the next generation of final expense product, and we're happy to show you today what we consider now to be the next generation of point-of-sale decision engine. This is a tool that if you use the risk qualifier, it will give you the ability to triage a case in the first couple minutes when you're in the home, see if you're on the right track with what you're thinking about writing for them. And then our point-of-sale works very slick. It's on a handheld device. Decisions are typically a couple minutes or less. But let me move over and cut the hype, and let's go to the actual demo. Jose?
Sure. I'm going to, and unless Liza wants me to do it differently, I'm going to take us through what I refer to as the happy path, and that is we have a customer who is very healthy, and we're going to take this through from beginning to end in as short a fashion as possible. And then after I'm done doing that, then I'm going to circle back and I'm going to show you guys the medications list and how you can work your way through that as well, all part of the underwriting process that is all built into the risk qualifier. And what I kind of brushed over without, when I was saying I'm going to take you all the way through to the end. This is a two-step process. There's the risk qualifier, which is what's showing on the screen right now, and what you're seeing right now is not representative of what you're going to see on a regular basis, but there's a two-step process. There's the risk qualification, and then there's the point-of-sale decision. And so I'm going to step you through all of that. So let's start with the risk qualifier, and that is an app that runs on Android or iPhones. And when you get this off of Google Play or off the App Store for iPhones, you're going to be asked to enter a login value for the very first time, and it's only the first time. So what we want you to do is enter CFGFE there. That's Columbian Financial Group Final Expense, CFGFE, and that would be what's going to make it work from that point forward, and just identifies you as a Columbian agent. All right.
Jose, let me stop you for a quick minute here. Gang, how you search for this, as Jose mentioned, you'll go to the Apple Store or your Google Play Store. So you're going to search CFGFE. There's a space between the CFG and the FE. This shall be the first one that pops up. Once you download it, you enter the password that Jose mentioned, which is now all together CFGFE, all lowercase letters.
Okay. Sure. So this what you're seeing on the screen now is what you're going to see every time that you load the app up, off of your phone or on your iPad, and it's basically it's something for us to collect all the demographics for two things. One is for identifying coverages that are available for your client, and two, it's a rate calculator. So all of the information that we have collected on this calculator or on this risk qualifier is there's nothing that's not being used. Every single bit of it is either for rate calculation or for identifying available coverages for you. So let me just give you some highlights on what you're looking at here. I'll start with the bottom of the screen, and that is right here. So you're looking at the 4 different types of coverages that are offered under our final expense product. So Elite and Select are our full benefit coverages, and Advantage and Security are our graded benefit coverages. You'll also notice that we have a color out there, and I'm going to go ahead and let you see that there's more to it than just red. I'm ahead of the game. And let's see, I'm going to say what you're going this order.
Hey guys, we got a lot of background noise. Somebody might want to mute their phone, please. Somebody outside Jose.
Yeah. Thanks for that check there, Al. Okay, so I've entered some basic demographic information, and you notice that the colors and of the coverages change down below. So it's basically saying that based on birth date or the state or the height and weight, that the coverages might change in their availability. So going back to describing the coverages that are available down below, we have a color scheme. So green means that it's available, red means that it's not available, and yellow means that there will be some underwriting involved. In addition to a color scheme, we also have a symbol scheme. So those that don't do well with colors, we can also give you a symbol so that they can work with that as well. So if it's green, aligns itself with a symbol that is a box with a check mark in it. Red has a circle with a slash through it, and yellow has a yield sign with an exclamation point in the middle of it. All right. So, but basically, we're going to go through a happy scenario here and assume that this person, I already see him. I'm in front of him. This person's in great shape. They don't take any meds. We're just gonna fly right on through this and go. And the way that I would do that is notice that there's there is another icon or a symbol down here for a calculator. And whenever you have yellow or green as available for any particular coverage, there will always be a calculator available for you to jump straight to the calculator from that point. So I'm going to go ahead and tap that, and it's going to say, hey, you're bypassing the medications list. Are you sure you want to do this? And I'm saying, yep, I'm fine with this guy. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. And we come straight to our calculator screen. And on the calculator screen, you can start working with your customer on what best suits them for their risk, and so you can work on the face amount, or you can work on them from a premium perspective, come over here and just say, maybe they can afford $30 a month, and it'll automatically adjust the values up here according to whatever you key in down below. In addition to putting in the face and the premium amount, you can also increment it by 10, whatever of these two amounts that you're working with, premium or face. You can change the mode, on the rate calculator and add whether or not they're tobacco or non-tobacco, and other rider information associated with the coverage. All right. But at this point, what I want to do is, again, assuming that we've already identified everything about this person and everything looks good, I'm going to, at this point, decide I want to get a real decision. I want to get a final decision on this. And so assuming you get to this point, we now want to fill out the application completely and all the way down to the wet signatures. You can do this either on paper or you can use our e-app solution as well. Both, we ask that you get it all the way down to the signatures. And on e-app, it'll be digital signatures. On paper, it'll be obviously a wet signature. But at that point, once you're ready to go, once you've done that, you go ahead and tap on the point of sale underwriting button. And don't worry about this. This is just because I'm on a test system. This will never happen to you. This is what you'll see next. You'll see a login. And so I'm going to log in as my test user that I use all the time. And go ahead and sign in. And this is this login. Go ahead, Liza.
Go ahead, honey.
I was going to say that. I'll shut up. Go, Liza.
I just wanted to clarify what the login is. That is your regular login that you use to sign on to the CFG website. So whatever you use to, check your business or your commissions when you log on to CFG, that is the login you are to use there.
Right. Okay, so after the login, you'll be brought to this screen on the app. And at this point, recall I just said, when you came to your decision on your pre-qualification that you wanted to go forward with getting an actual decision, we wanted you to fill out the app. Well, now we're asking you to attest that you filled out the app. So you just tap a checkbox there, And notice that it's already has Georgia here. Well, it brought that forward from the risk qualifier. And all of the fields that are usable in getting the final underwriting decision, if they were already collected in the risk qualifier, they're going to be available here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tap continue. At this point, we ask that you have your customer, your client, sign that we're about to do MIB and prescription background check, basically. And this is using a finger signature or a stylus pen. So they can do anything here, but using their finger again or a stylus, and so it's free form signature. Go ahead and hit sign and continue. And at this point, you can see that even some of the other fields that we had entered in previously traveled forward. And so the birth date, the gender, the height and weight all came forward. The only thing I have to fill in now are the remaining fields. Tobacco also came forward. It's down here at the bottom. All right. Don't mind the odd name that I have here for first name and so forth. These are test characters. I'm in a test system for doing this demonstration for you guys. So disregard this. These are some really specific items I have to do for MIB. Let's see. So BD. And finally, all right. I'm going to say that I'm born in Georgia, just the same as the state as I reside in, and I'm going to go ahead and tap continue. And at this point, it is actually going out to our underwriting decision engine, and it's pulling the decision. So it's going ahead and taking all the information that was keyed in there, the Social Security number, the name of the person, all of the demographic information, all of that is being passed forward. And what's being conducted right now behind this active spinner is an MIB check, a prescription background check. It's if they're within the right age range, it's also going to do an MVR check. In addition to that, it's checking the date of last medical consultation. Of course, this person was too young to even ask that. But then it also offered the last is the height weight table. So all of those 5 factors go into the delivering of the point of sale decision. As you can see here, this person is getting all greens, and so that means that all 4 of the coverages that we offer for final expense are available for this particular person. And as an agent, I'm always going to offer my customer the very, very best. So I'm going to go ahead and take the full benefit elite option and tap on that. And knowing that it's a full benefit application or a full benefit coverage, we understand that an interview is required. So we've plugged in the value or the phone number for Aptical right into the tool. And it knows that this is the next step in the process. And smartphones, whenever a phone number is presented on a screen on a smartphone, it puts an underline on it, which means it's a link. And all you have to do is tap on it, and it starts up the auto dialer feature built into both Androids and iPhones. It's all built in, all right? And you tap that, you make your phone call to Aptical, you conduct the interview, and basically when the interview is done and you hang up the phone, it'll return back to this screen. At that point, you just tap the continue button, and it's basically saying, it's closing up shop here and asking you to make sure that the premium and the face amount are correct, and that the plan amount applied for, and submit the signed application to make sure it's all in good order, and make sure that you submit that over to us. So that's the happy path. That's the fast path. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to be resetting here to show you the medication side of this. But in the meantime, do you have any questions?
Hey, Jose, this is Alan. Let me jump in with a comment because as we move toward medications, as you know, medication is treatment. But we don't ask, and I want everybody to hear this very loudly and clearly because this is really, really important. Unlike some companies, we don't ask about treatment, medication, with reference to heart attack or stroke or heart surgery such as bypass or angioplasty. And as an example, if someone had a heart attack or a stroke or a triple bypass, as long as they had the event over 2 years ago, they're going to be taking medication today. They'll take it the rest of their life. We can issue elite. They can answer the question no, because we ask whether or not they've had, not have they had and received or received treatment for. It just says, have you had a heart attack in the last 2 years? Have you had a heart surgery? Have you had a stroke? So if somebody had a stroke 7 years ago and they're taking Plavix today, they'll be taking it probably for the rest of their life. We can issue them the elite, the very best premium that we have, full benefit. That's a big deal because some companies make you put people that are being treated with medication for, you know, a past stroke or a heart attack or a heart surgery. They require that you go graded because they ask whether or not you've had and or received treatment for. So, Roger, I know we hit on this a little bit yesterday, and I want to make sure that that just comes across real clear for the team. Can you hear me there?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Do you guys have me?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the questions that pops up is, you know, you pretty much clarified it because other companies will consider blood thinners and other meds as such for heart issues or past heart issues, even if they've been outside of the 2-year windows as treatment, and they go to some, you know, they step down from their immediate full level benefit and either to a standard benefit or to a graded benefit. And right, you're saying with the elite product, it only asks if the event happened within the last 2 years. So it's event based, not prescription based in that sense. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct, but we've got to be careful. We can't just say with reference to heart issues. We've got to be specific to the heart issue. Heart attack, stroke, heart surgery such as bypass, angioplasty. Those are the types of those are the conditions where all they want to know is whether or not you've had the event inside the last 2 years. So again, if somebody had a heart attack, you know, 8 years ago, they're taking a blood thinner today, and therefore with some companies they must go graded. With us, they go elite level benefit. Now, if somebody is being treated for angina, this is why I'm specific to heart. We've got to be specific to the condition. If somebody has angina and they're taking a nitro pill every once in a while because they have some heart, you know, some chest pain, that is one of the questions on the app, is whether or not they've had angina in the last 2 years. If somebody has had to, if somebody has taken a nitro pill for chest pain, say 6 months ago, well, that was because they were experiencing angina, which means that they must answer yes to the question. They've had the condition in the last 2 years. Rick, I know you've got an underwriting background. Would you agree with everything I've just said?
You're spot on, Alan.
Okay, great. Roger, how am I doing there in clarifying everything?
You're doing great. You're doing great. So any event within the last 2 years, if it's asked about on the application, is considered an event. That would be a yes answer, such as angina. However, you could have a prescription for nitro because of past heart issues, and you have it on hand for emergencies. As long as you don't take it, that would go through as elite, or how does that show up on the?
Yeah.
How does that show up on the qualifier?
I'll tell you. A great question. Here's how that works. If somebody had a heart attack 7 or 8 years ago, they're probably carrying nitroglycerin in their pocket. And they also have to get it refilled probably every 6 months because it's the type of medication that'll get stale and it needs to be updated. So just because somebody carries nitro and has nitro refilled at the pharmacy, we're not concerned unless they've used the nitro in the last 2 years. So when somebody tells you, or if nitroglycerin comes up, you need to find out why. If the guy says, "Well, it's because I had some blockage, I had a bypass, or I had a stent put in, you know, about 4 years ago, and the doc told me to carry the nitro. If I get some chest pain, I pop a nitro pill, I call the ambulance." All right. Well, so that's what you need to find out about. You want to get that detailed with them. If they have not used the nitro in the last 2 years, then they're going to be fine to answer no to the question with reference to angina, and they can still qualify even though they just refilled their nitroglycerin last week. Rick, was that accurate?
Very accurate.
So Alan, how does that show up now? And I know we're going to walk through this, but when you type in nitroglycerin on the risk qualifier here in the medications list, as we're going to see, what happens to that medication? I'm anxious to see how that works inside the app.
I think we'll probably just let Jose take it from here. Eliza, would you agree? And then we'll get to that point.
Yeah, I
Well,
just want to clarify.
I'm sorry, Liza. Let me jump in real quick. I want to just emphasize to everybody, since the introduction of the product, 82% of the apps we get are getting the elite rate. So it is a product that's designed to be, field friendly. It helps you write the product, and 82% of our applicants are getting our best rate. So I just want everybody to be aware of that.
Thanks, Rick. And Roger, to your point, I just want to clarify what we're going to see, the risk qualifier. Any medication, what it's intended to do is to guide you to the best plan available based on the information that you're submitting. The information there, other than the birthday state and all of that good stuff, the medications that you enter do not move forward to the POS. It is just mainly to guide you and give you the best plan that it thinks based on the medications that you entered that you actually are going to receive. On the POS, we are actually doing all the underwriting checks, as Jose mentioned, which is the MIB, the prescription, all of that, and that is your final decision. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yeah, so for new agents, if they go through and they go to the next stage here and start entering in medications, one of those medications is Nitrostat. That's probably not going to come up with a green under Elite or Select. It's probably going to be yellow or possibly even red. So I'm anxious to see how that works. And so what I want to ask is, and clarify for new agents, just because you get a yellow or possibly even a red, I'm assuming it might be yellow, that doesn't mean they wouldn't qualify for the full level benefit, the Elite product, because it's still based on how they answer the questions and the POS that is done after this part.
You got it.
Okay.
So, Jose, if you want to take us through the risk qualifier, that'd be great.
Sure thing. All right, so what I've done is I've restarted the risk qualifying calculator, and I've gone ahead and entered some of this demographic information one more time. But now this is a person who's a little bit older, and so therefore the medical consult is in play, basically. So what I want to show you is the quick effect of the coverages available based on what's been entered so far. By default, we say that they've not done a medical consult in the last 5 years. But when I switch it to yes, all coverages suddenly become available. So we're going to go forward from this point. But now my assumption is I want to go through a meds list with my customer. And to do that, all I have to do is tap the next button. And now it's going to go ahead and download all of the medicines that are out there in the local database of the phone. Okay, and so that's all built into the app, and so you don't need to run this. You don't need to have this connected to the Wi-Fi or to cellular service with a data plan, except for at the very first load when you first open it up and log in. That's the only time you ever have to do it connected. After that, you can even start using the app totally disconnected from that point forward. Everything is stored locally. So anyway,
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jose. Very quickly, I just want to mention all the medications here include generic and name brand. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. We have over 7,000 medications in this.
That is correct. It's over 7,000, and we update it quarterly as there are new drugs introduced and as new uses for drugs are introduced. So it is a dynamic process.
Right. Okay. So on this screen, similar to what we described earlier with regards to the available coverages, we have similar color schemes and symbol schemes next to each one of the medications. And so therefore, if the effect of adding this particular drug for this person, or it's the effect against the coverage. So let's say that right now they're all green, and if I were to add this particular drug, it's viewed as inconsequential. It's not going to hurt their coverage. If I selected it, it doesn't change anything. But if it has a different color, in other words, yellow or red, if I select it, it might apply that color to one or two of the available coverages. So this is how the medications play into everything. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect this, and I'm going to show you another feature of the medications list, and that is the search box. If I come up here and enter a search value, it does two types of searches. One is an explicit name search, and the other is a sounds like search or a phonetic search. And that's for those of you that like to work in two different fashions with your customers. Some of you like to have them just bring out their pill containers, and so you have all the labels right there with the names explicitly written on the container, and you can go letter for letter and search for things. Others are conversational, and so this allows for you to carry on a conversation. And so if you have a slight misspelling in the name of a medication, it's still going to be a hit, and you're likely going to find it on your list of available meds from the search. But another thing I wanted to point out is whenever you find a medication that has a red question mark to the right of it, that means that in addition to you selecting that particular medication, we want to ask some follow-up questions. And so I'm going to go ahead and select digoxin, and you're going to notice it gives you some information here about the drug. You'll never get this debug information. That's only because we're on an internal system here. But basically what I wanted to show you here is that it has some follow-up questions. So in this particular instance, it's asking if digoxin is used for the treatment of congestive heart failure. And I'm going to go ahead and select yes on that one. And then it's asking if it's used for the treatment of AFib. And I'm going to say no for that one. At this point, I'm going to tap the done button and watch the effect on the coverages below. All right. So let's go back through that process again, but now I'm going to swap the answers on each. So I'm going to reselect digoxin. I'm going to say this time congestive heart failure, I'm going to say no. And AFib, I'm going to say yes. Go ahead and tap the done button. And you notice that now the only thing that's off the table is elite. So it allows you to dig in a little bit on certain drugs, but it gives you the flexibility of getting that second question, that follow-up question on any particular drug. Another thing that I want to point out is that when you're done with this particular item, you can go ahead and hit X here and enter another search. And so at that point, if you want to add other medications to the list, you do, and you notice how it has this horizontal bar right here. Those are for all of the items that have been selected. And you can just keep on going, listing through here and picking more and more medications, however many there might be, okay? But with every addition of a medication and whatever the application of that medication is, in other words, the application being the scheme to the right-hand side of each medication, it'll have some sort of an effect on the coverages that are available. Once you're done going through the list and identifying each of the medications for your customer, you just tap next, and you'll go to where you go to the summary screen, excuse me. And at this point, you're going to go with the best coverage that you can possibly get them. And so in this case, we're going to go with select. I'm going to tap on select, and now it's taken us back to the rate calculator that I showed you previously. And so now you're only working on select features. And so it'll always have the coverage that you selected up here at the top. And then this is all of the various factors in rating that particular coverage. So at this point, I'm going to stop. Everything else is the same. We can go through the point of sale underwriting again, but it's essentially the same as what I'd shown you before. Any questions on this?
Can we take a look at the Nitrostat and also to see how that works, and also Plavix, just to see how that works and what happens from there? And actually, just delete the other meds so that we have a clean look at it. Yeah, there you go.
All right. There's your effect of Plavix.
Okay, but they had their heart attack 4 years ago. They're taking Plavix. So a new agent looks at this. What is that new agent supposed to assume?
Liza, it's going to need some underwriting. It's going to be brought back for some underwriting.
Yeah, it's a situation where we just don't know enough information right there. So when it runs through the actual point of sale, it will, it may give a little bit more, which would be a negative, but if the point of sale carried as is still going yellow, then it would come back for the underwriters to look at. And that's where I want to reemphasize what I said earlier. 82% of the cases get elite rate. So don't be intimidated by yellow decisions.
Rick, when you say it's going to come back for further underwriting, does that mean on the phone or further underwriting after the phone call?
No, it would be after. You'd have to send the app in, and they will work on it right away.
So you're not a definitive answer, even though all the questions were answered no on the application, as stated on the application. Even though Plavix is listed as one of the meds, they're not going to get a definitive answer on the phone.
Not in this situation, no.
Okay.
But Rick, isn't the best way to handle that is to, obviously when you see Plavix popped up, you've got to ask your client. You're going to have to start drilling down now to find out why it is that they use that. Why was it prescribed? Who prescribed it? Was it your heart doc or what? You know, what's the situation? And once it's been assessed by the agent that this is being used because of a heart attack that that happened 4 years ago. This is one of the medications that was prescribed after the heart attack as preventative. Then on the application under notes or on the remarks section, wouldn't you recommend that at that point the agent go ahead and get a statement from your client? Let's indicate what this is for. Because obviously. Yeah, so because what we have to do, gang, is we have to rule out Plavix being used for maybe a more recent heart attack or a stroke or heart-related issue that would have required a yes answer on the app. So we have to just treat the application like a canvas, and you're the artist. You got to paint the picture for the company, and the way to do that would be to put down details. Okay, applicant had a heart attack. May 2014 was prescribed Plavix at that time as a preventative. Then you get your customer to sign that statement, because we want to make sure it looks like that's their comment. That wasn't something that maybe an agent wrote on an application, later in the afternoon when they're sitting in a hotel cleaning up all their apps. So, and don't take that the wrong way, but I'm just telling you, I've got guys that do that, and you need to make sure that any kind of statements that are out of the ordinary, like the one I'm talking about, looks like it came from the client. And the way to do that is to write it out right there with your customer, make sure they agree to what it is you wrote down, and then have them sign the statement. That's them agreeing that, yeah, those are my words. And then when the application comes into the home office will see, okay, well, everything came up clean except for Plavix, but now we have an understanding as to why they use it. It's because they had a heart attack over 3 years ago in the example I just gave. And therefore, an underwriter can then make an assessment quickly, look the app over and say, this is something that's issuable, and just issue it. Rick, isn't that the way to do it? Because if we don't give that information, now the company has to go dig for that additional information to make sure that the Plavix isn't being used for a more current condition that they may have suffered from, and they're going to make a second interview, which is what we want to avoid. Rick, is that correct?
No, I would agree, Alan. If you can provide some additional details, and typically, I should mention, if we haven't told you this on prior calls, we are a company that encourages accessibility to our underwriters, so you can always check with them during business hours. And in a case like this, as Alan points out, putting comments down on the app will certainly go a long way to expedite the decision in the case.
Yeah, so Roger, it's not a perfect answer, but I will say this, and I think you realize this is sort of the guys on the phone and the gals on the phone. There are some companies that just take a hard line. If you're on Plavix, you're not going to get full benefit, period. It's an automatic graded. But Columbia doesn't do that because they want to know more, because they want to understand why they use it. There are a lot of dual-purpose medications out there. We don't want to rule people out just because they take a medication and assume the worst. Because in this example, it's not the worst as long as the event was over 2 years ago. That's what you have to make clear to the company. And so that's an example where you get a yellow, you're not going to have an absolute yes or no. Now, we could have changed it. We could have just said, hey, you know what? Plavix is an automatic red light, like some companies do. But we decided, no, that's not the way we want to do this because we're going to walk away from some good quality business if we do. So, it's not a perfect scenario when you have Plavix, but you can make it one if you spell it out for the company. And that's why Rick said, don't be afraid of yellows. We issue a tremendous amount of yellows, elite. Rick, isn't that accurate?
Absolutely.
So
hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it absolutely is, Alan. Would the Plavix be addressed on the point of sale phone call on the first one, or is it going to require something further beyond that first one?
It depends on whether or not it comes up with the system that Aptical is using. If it does come up, they're going to ask the questions, and you're going to want to make sure your customer is prepared because you already know that they're using Plavix. It came up, during your the pre-screening here. So
Right.
You're going to want to make sure that they're prepared to talk about it. Why do you use it? When was it prescribed? What is it for? Is it because of the heart attack or the stroke that you had over 2 years ago? But it may not come up. Aptical's system isn't 100% with reference to prescription drug hits. Rick, isn't that accurate?
No, you're correct. We use Milliman to draw the prescription history, and you get about an 80% hit rate. So
if that does come up on the point of sale telephone interview, the first one, and it's addressed, does Aptical follow that up with you guys to ask, what that's being used for, and what incident, what incident happened that precipitated this medication being taken regularly?
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say what we're doing here is we're running the point of sale before we do the interview. You'll see as we go, the point of sale interview is at the very end. It's just a formality to get a recording of the declarations by the applicant.
Okay.
We're giving you a decision prior to that. And then we're looking at modifying our phone interview. We wanted to get this process out there. Then that's the next thing that we're going to be working on is modifications to the interview, shortening it up.
Okay, so
But
in this
the
case,
way
the decision's made before the questions are asked, so it's an unknown whether this medication was taken for something inside the time frame or outside the time frame, so it automatically gets kicked to further underwriting.
Yes.
Right, but during that phone inspection, Rick, they are still catching some of these meds, and it may come up, right? And if it does come up, they're going to ask questions about it. And if your client gives a good description as to why they use it, then that's a good thing because that will get recorded, and Columbia will receive that information when they receive the application back. Isn't that correct, Rick? They're still doing that, correct?
Yes, they are. They're doing the interview. They go through the prescription history. They will do a review of all the red meds, and you have a chance to add commentary there. But we do have some yellow decisions where we've got to go to the underwriters. We also have yellow decisions like on the risk qualifier, and then you could run it through the point of sale, and it could give you enough information with MIBs and prescriptions and the number of fills and the doctor who prescribed it that some of those will have the decision, and it will turn out to be favorable too. So again, I wouldn't be intimidated by yellows.
Okay.
Right, but I think the most important thing that you can do is let's not rely on the phone inspect, them asking the pertinent questions, because all they want to do is ask those questions, get the yes or no's, and basically move on to the next call. They're not underwriters, okay? The folks at Aptical. So when you've got Plavix, it popped up, the best thing I think you can do is to get on that remarks section of the application with a statement with reference to when it was prescribed and why it was prescribed. Because now we've got a statement from the customer. When Rick says it's got to go to the underwriter, what happens is the majority of the applications that come to the home office are never touched by an underwriter because everything was green, okay? And all the answers on the application were no. Underwriters don't touch those applications. They go into the new business department, they get keyed in, they get issued, you get paid. It's that simple. But when we have a yellow, that means that an underwriter just needs to review it. Take a look to see if there's anything that stands out as a potential red flag. But when you have those, and the red flag, of course, is the Plavix. But you're going to pull the red flag down by having that statement on the application that the underwriter will then see, and then be able to make an assessment and a decision right then and there without taking it further. And what I mean by taking it further is making a second phone inspection for clarification to find out why they use Plavix. So you want to eliminate the second interview, and you do that by putting that statement on there. Rick?
Yes, sir. That would help.
All right, guys. Thanks, guys.
All right. Is there anything else I could show you on the risk qualifying calculator?
Team, if there's any questions from anybody out there, you just make sure that your audio button is green. If you're using a smartphone, it should be in the upper right corner of your interface for mute or unmute. If you're on a computer, just make sure your button is green, and you should be able to talk. If you have a question, we'd love to hear from you. I know there has been some questions in the past, so we'd love to hear those addressed at this time.
Guess that means we're doing a pretty good job, Roger.
We must have answered all the questions. I did have one question. Is the login required every time when you open this app?
No, it is not. It is only required when you first download it. Or if you purchase a new phone and download it again. Obviously, downloading here is the key word I'm using. So no, once you've keyed in that login, that CFGFE, from that point forward, you should be fine.
And it works without internet connectivity?
That is correct. The point of sale decision does not, when you get to, I'll get you right here in a second. When you get to this button here, the point of sale underwriting, that is the point where a connection to, a cellular service, Wi-Fi or a data plan, that is required at that point, because our underwriting service is a third party, and obviously it's MIB, IntelliScript, those kinds of things. So therefore, we're making a call, and so you're making a call as well.
So if you have no internet connectivity, as a couple of our agents did yesterday, they were actually texting us. They weren't able to connect to internet, but they were able to get a text out or a phone call out. What should they do at this point?
If they were able to get a phone call out, it sounds to me like they had service. So they'd be able to do this. They should be, if their cellular phone works enough for texting and cellular, making a phone call, they should be able to tap this point of sale underwriting button, and it should work fine. I'm talking about the absolute sticks, where you absolutely have no cellular towers in the vicinity, and you don't have Wi-Fi available to you at wherever you are.
So does this operate on your data plan or cellular service?
This would operate on your data plan.
Okay, so you could have cellular phone service, but no access to internet because of data.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm making an assumption. I always connect the two, but you're right.
Yeah, and if they do that, they just call the regular applicable number for CFG and go through the process that way.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm looking at the underwriting questions. This is an underwriting question, but just to clarify about how CFG doesn't ask about are you being treated? It's more diagnosed. It sounded like that was the statement. So if I'm looking at this question of during the last 36 months, have you been diagnosed as having complications of diabetes? It doesn't say anything about treatment there. So if they're on gabapentin and they're on metformin and gabapentin, for instance, but they've been on gabapentin for 3 years, the diagnosis was over 36 months. Are they good to proceed, or is that going to be a yes no matter when the diagnosis was?
It's Alan here. What is the gabapentin being used for?
Well, it'd be diabetic neuropathy.
then that's a problem, because we do very specifically ask whether or not they've had complications in the last couple of years or being treated. We use the word treated in that question with reference to any kind of complication of diabetes, such as, and the most common is neuropathy. So
Okay,
yeah, be very careful in neuropathy. Yeah.
When I was reading the question, it says, during the last 36 months, have you been diagnosed by a member of medical professionals having complications of diabetes? Oh, okay. And it goes on, or diabetes not, well, then it says, or diabetes not under control with current treatment, or have used insulin. So.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it doesn't
so if
matter at that point.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No, because if you've got neuropathy, you've got a complication of diabetes, and it's a pretty serious one that can eventually turn into something pretty bad if not managed properly. So yeah, any kind of retinopathy, which is the eye, nephropathy, which is the kidney, neuropathy, which is going to be circulatory, and typically it's the numbness in the legs, and which eventually can sometimes turn into an amputation. Very, very serious complication. Yeah, you got to be very careful of that. So if they're using gabapentin, don't write it with Colombian full benefit. It will not fly because they're using that for neuropathy. Rick, would you agree?
I would agree, Alan.
Here's a question in regards to underwriting and how that works, just so we have a more complete picture. If you have a client who maybe is a recent diabetic, and their background, they were taking a pill, maybe a gabapentin for a nerve pain due to their disability. Is there flexibility in that to be able to put, client had a back surgery, takes gabapentin, but is on metformin, but the gabapentin clearly was taken before the metformin? Is there flexibility in that underwriting, or is it, man, we don't touch that stuff, you might as well just
it's going to be that's a tough one, because when you've got somebody that's using medication that is very specifically for neuropathy, but there are some examples where somebody may be taking, like you just said, somebody had some kind of an injury or some kind of back issue or whatever, back pain, and that kind of medication may in some examples be prescribed, and then they end up developing diabetes later on, and now they're taking metformin for diabetes. That's a tough one, because the only way to really know what's really going on is to look at somebody's medical records, which we're not going to do.
Right.
So, is there flexibility? Here's what my response to that's going to be. Yes, if somebody is using medication that's typically for neuropathy, yes, there's flexibility. But the answer then is going to have to be no when they're diabetic. If they're not a diabetic and they use that medication because of a back injury, that makes sense. But if they're diabetic and they're using that medication, it's going to be hard for the underwriter to trust or believe that there isn't some neuropathy going on as a result of complications of diabetes. And so I'm going to tell you that would be one I don't know that I would touch. Rick, would you agree with that?
Yeah, that one is going to be hard because of the overriding diabetic situation. But to Alan's point, other situations, you're always able to call and talk to the underwriters, and they will try and give you the best assessment. They'll they'll give you the right questions to ask the client to delve in and try and figure out, is it something we can work with or not?
Yeah, the good news is there is a company out there that'll issue neuropathy full benefit. And I believe you guys have that company in your bag. My recommendation is going to be put that business there, because you're not going to get it here. And again, we don't claim to be able. Again, every company has its loopholes. Okay, every company has kind of their sweet spots. And what I wanted to make sure earlier is that you understand that, hey, we've got our elite non-tobacco rate is the best rate in America when you stick that accidental death benefit on there. You got accidental death, and you've got somebody that can answer no to those questions. They get a green light. You want to give them to Colombian, those healthy folks, because it is a wonderful reward for good health, a wonderful low premium. But the sweet spot also is that if you've got somebody that is taking medication, blood thinners, because of a heart attack or a stroke or a heart surgery that they had over 2 years ago, be aware of the fact that they can also qualify for that dynamite super low rate with Columbia Life, which is really dynamite, because you can't do that right now with one of your primary companies. So
thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Good questions.
Before we wrap up, I just want to mention a couple of things. First and foremost, I want to remind everybody that we made a Changes to our build charts. We now have a unisex build chart, very, very generous as far as females go. They went to the male height, so I want to remind everybody that there's new charts out there. And lastly, we have created a team that is dedicated to answer any questions you may have on how to install or how the POS works. There's a dedicated team that works 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. through 4 p.m. on Saturdays. The phone number for the POS team is 607-722-8989. And then we also have an email address, which is poshelp@cfglife.com.
So that's the point of sale help desk. So if anybody's having trouble getting this working properly on their smartphone or have questions, that's the team to call, is the point of sale help desk. The reason we created this system, which is very unique, was because we did not want to put you in a position where you've got to put your, like everybody else, most other companies do, where you've got to put your client on the phone, put them through all the health questions before you get an answer at the very end. Because we all know that when you have when you've got a declination at the end of a phone inspection, it's pretty frustrating because now you've got to convince your client that we've got to do this all over again with another company. Oh my gosh. The beauty of this particular point of sale decision engine created by Columbia Life is the fact that you're going to be able to assess a response without putting your customer on the phone. And the whole process takes, what, 3 or 4, maybe in some cases 5 minutes, Rick, isn't that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, and that way you'll know. You get a green light for a lead, guys. Go for it. Put it on. You know, get them in here, because you're going to be able to do that again without having your client on the phone talking to anybody. You're not going to put them on the phone with Aptical to do the phone inspection unless you know that they're approved. So if you you need to do this with everybody you're sitting in front of, because it just takes 3 or 4 minutes. And the worst thing that's going to happen, at a minimum, is you're going to at least understand what's going on with their health without having to get any phone inspections started. You're going to know what's up with MIB. You're going to know what's going on with medications, because it's going to pop up. It'll give you direction and help you to figure out what direction you really need to go. But if you get a green light with Columbian for Elite, oh my gosh, it's the best rate out there. Put accidental death benefit on there, and you're not going to get beat by anybody.
I love the new product. I love how it's set up. I love the fact that you guys have even flexibility on the yellow, because I understand why it's yellow. You know, someone's taking Plavix or someone's taking Nitro, it should be yellow, and there should be further clarification required. I love how it's, once you actually submit the POS underwriting, it's doing it in the background even before you, get the client on the phone. So I think it's a great system. I think it's good for new agents, especially when they're trying to make determinations on what the client qualifies for. And they don't, new agents don't even understand what Plavix is yet. They don't understand what Nitro is, compared to lisinopril. They hear both of those, and they both sound like they're deadly, and and they're just trying to walk through that. So I think it's a great tool for new agents as well as experienced agents to speed up the process, get to a quick decision, and certainly point people in the right direction. And like you said, there's going to be some cases that we need to go to one of our other carriers because it's a better fit. But certainly, if they come up with the elite here, it's going to be the best price out there for your client, which is, of course, always in our best interest to do what's right for the client first.
Please do not run the POS on yourself or family members or friends. This is live underwriting, so pretty please do not run it, or else we're going to have to go back to you and ask for an application. We have created a test case, which is on the screen right now. You can see it, and this information is out on our website as well, that you can enter and just get yourself familiarized with the POS. But again, please do not run it on yourself. If you do run a POS case and it renders a decision that that your client doesn't want, for example, you're applying for a LEAP, but in the rare case it dropped all the way down to security, and you choose to withdraw the case, we need the application in our office, so please write across the application withdrawn and submit it to our office. If by the rare chance all plans are declined, you're going to write on the application declined and submit it to us, because we do need it for auditing purposes.
It's HIPAA compliance, gang. We have to have that because of HIPAA compliance issues. So appreciate it. Hey, you know what? Challenge yourselves. You know, we're going to a golfer's mecca. We're going to be at Half Moon Bay. That's our sales conference at the Ritz-Carlton. This place is phenomenal, and if you like golf, this is a golfer's heaven. So, you know, for those of you that want to get going, you know, we've got plenty of time left. Here it is, the very, very beginning of June tomorrow, and we'd love to have a team of people from this organization with us. So challenge yourselves. I know you can do it.
Alan, I understand there's a prorated amount
Absolutely.
for people writing their first pieces of business. Is it when
That's
they
correct.
or when they submit their first piece of business?
Yeah, well, we don't actually appoint somebody officially until they've actually submitted their first case, and we do prorate all the way to July. So as an example, if somebody starts with us in June, they start tomorrow, they write their very first case with us tomorrow, they need $61,153 to qualify for Half Moon Bay. $61,000. Okay, that's just over $10,000 a month. If you're really in the business, I know we got a lot of folks in here that are hot dogs, you're going to write $10,000 a month or you're not making a living. So if you come in and join us in July, $58,707 is what would be required to qualify. So it's within reach, gang. Love to see you there.
Alan, I understand that you have some of your top producers and other organizations that have already qualified. Is that correct?
We had 3 people that qualified in 4 months. Yes. So yes, actually we had one qualified 3.5 months, and you needed 80,000 if you were there in January.
80,000, 3.5 months. That's pretty strong.
Oh, it's incredibly strong. No, we got some folks out there that just love it. Again, run the POS on every single customer you sit in front of, and if you get that green light for Elite, write it up and stick that accidental death benefit on there, and nobody will beat you. And don't forget about that child term rider. That grandchild rider is hot. You know, we can write up to 20 grandkids on that policy, and when you're including, you know, grandkids, you know, you got a policy that stays on the books forever because these people are going to guard that policy. Somebody comes in behind them, they can't beat what we're doing with that accident. I mean, with the grandchild rider. So if you want some further training on that, just let us know. Everything is about education. You get out there, you give us a try, scratch 3, 4, 5 apps, and you're going to find out and realize that, wow, this is pretty easy. I like these folks. Trust me.